This is Marya Dury, and I'm working together with JB Rainsberger to use an LLM to build him a mobile app that will record his bowling sessions. And so we've been looking at the code. In our previous session, we did a little bit of a walkthrough, and I think it was pretty reasonable what Bolt was doing to build the app. We looked at the code, not too
Absolutely.
bad.
Yeah.
Um,
So far, it's been more little quibbles or me not necessarily understanding what sort of standard in the
The
framework.
framework. Yeah, we had framework
So
issues.
yeah, and that's just the kind of thing we're always going to be in a constant tug of war between taking advantage of the framework and being coupled to the framework, and that's just it's fine.
Yep. So we wanted to share just an item that we came across. So JB, you want to take a look at that? This is
Yeah,
not.
this really. Go ahead.
So I just want to say this is not a necessarily criticism. This is just like an
Oh,
idea
absolutely not. Yeah.
improvement.
This definitely, I mean, I like to use the term micro technique to refer to
Yeah.
like the little tiny moves that we do that we build up into, bigger moves and strategies. This is maybe a pico technique, femto technique. Like this is really, really tiny. But one of the things that I notice inside, so here we are inside the code that calculates that essentially summarizes a session. A session is a bunch of throw outcomes, and we can um, summarize that into some key measures. And one of the little measures is something that um, this is something that we worked with before where Bolt called this accuracy. It actually anticipated that we wanted this, but it didn't count accuracy the same way I did. So we ended up having to ask it to change that. But what it's
But
left
I just want to
behind,
jump in. I want to jump in
sure.
here, JB, for anybody who doesn't know bowling. I wanted to
Yeah.
say, so as an example, imagine you threw, so what you're doing is you're throwing the ball at the pins,
Yeah.
and the goal, right, is to knock down all the pins.
Well,
I think that's
normally, yes, but in this practice drill, the goal is really just to hit the pin that I'm aiming at, which in this case is the middle pin. And so there are a bunch of different outcomes,
okay.
but for our purposes for today, what matters is the difference between missing, which is these two outcomes, which are symbolized by less than and greater than,
Okay.
and then all these letters are different ways of hitting the target. And
Okay.
so accuracy is just concerned with when I throw a practice ball, did I hit my target or not?
Okay.
And we're defining that as I hit the target pin. And any of these outcomes are different ways of hitting the target pin. And these two outcomes at the bottom are the ways of missing. And that's how we calculate accuracy.
All right.
And
Okay, so go
so,
ahead.
yeah, so this is very plausible, perfectly fine code. And in fact, this is the part that we asked Bolt to change last time to make because it incorrectly excluded some hits thinking they were misses. When we
Yes.
fixed that, we took that opportunity to simplify the code by essentially saying count the misses, subtract them from the rest, and then that becomes the numerator for accuracy, as opposed to let's count all the different kinds of hits. Just count the kinds of misses because there are fewer of them, subtract them from the total, and that tells us how many hits there were. And we just happen to be calling them bad throws and good throws. So this is stuff that we did before. What we didn't talk about before is now we're introducing a couple of local variables that are going to be used on the following line and then never again. And this is like a tiny, tiny, tiny thing because with code that's 20 lines long, there's nothing wrong with this. But as this code grows, we know from past experience that one of the things that we struggle with when we change code is there are a bunch of local variables that are changing throughout the lifetime of 1,000 line long method or function, and we
Yeah.
don't know what's safe to change. So we end up spending all this time trying to carefully rearrange things and to figure out where the local variables are being used and to push the declarations closer to where they're being used so that we can limit the scope of when those local variables are being used, and then we know that we can change it safely.
Right.
I would rather deal with this problem when it's tiny and it's easy. And so I would extract this into a little function and use it here. Now, you'd
Okay.
asked me before where that function would go. And again, one of the nice things about working in any kind of flexible um, or functional oriented language is that we can have functions inside functions purely for scoping reasons, just so that the local variables don't pollute a wider namespace and get subject to that problem when the function gets really long. So when I'm working in JavaScript, I would tend to start with a local function. And so I would even just start with something as stupid as this. So this is um, I don't like saying calculate, but I'll use the name just because it's the same thing that is happening here. So here's where I'm trying to write JavaScript instead of, I guess, TypeScript.
It's TypeScript, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess
Hopefully
this
you'll
is
get complaints that will help you.
yeah, this is exactly what I was hoping for. So this will be, I'm going to uh, try to make things as simple as possible. And what's this going to return? This is going to return I guess a floating point number. What do you call that? And what's the type for that in TypeScript? Do you know offhand? Is that
I don't know offhand. It might be a decimal or something.
okay? Well, let's try
Well,
something
let's give it
stupid
it
and
might
see
just
what
be a
happens.
number though.
Yeah, we know for sure it's going to be a number. So let's
I mean,
just put this in
a capital
here,
N number. So
capital N number. Okay. And so with my naive knowledge of TypeScript combined with my rudimentary knowledge of JavaScript, I would expect it to look something like that.
yes, and
And this
so
also
I
has
want to
the,
call
this
out
also, yeah,
I
go
want
ahead.
to call out what you just did was you
Yeah,
added this function you're not using anywhere and you haven't changed the code otherwise. So all you've done is added an unused function, right? Within
right.
this function.
I, and this is a personal taste thing for me. I just want to see if I can get the syntax right before I try to use it. And then
Hmm.
the interesting part will be if I try to use it, do I break anything?
Right.
So one of the little things that changed as a result is this block of code no longer writes to any object properties, which means that it's easier to test and it's easier to use in other contexts, which
Right.
again, probably doesn't matter that much in this specific case, but those are always famous last words. Oh, this will never be a problem until we wake up on Monday morning and it becomes a problem. So presumably now I can do this. Again, I'm just trying to make fewer mistakes. And that should be okay. So now the 3 lines of code from 27 to 29 are useless. Um, but in the worst case, whatever they did, they're going to do the same thing as what they did before. So that's my idea. If I press save now, nobody's screaming at me. So now if we go to history, does anything blow up? I'm even going to reload just to be safe. I think it actually already updated the code there. And we can check that by making calculate accuracy intentionally fail. But let's see. So based on my knowledge of the app, all I want to look at is if misses are 0, then accuracy should be 100%. So those are okay. Here we have 2 misses out of 14 throws, so that should be 85.7%.
Okay.
Whenever I make a refactoring like that, I'm expecting nothing to change,
Right.
except if I'm working in a programming environment that I'm not totally comfortable in, then I get nervous when nothing changed because that could have been a mistake. That could have been
Yeah.
like I didn't actually change what I thought I was changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's do a little mutation testing
Okay.
and let's try. This should double all the percentages and they'll look wrong.
Okay.
Yay, that worked.
All right.
All the
That worked.
percentages doubled. Okay. So I have at least reasonable, this is not exactly unit testing, but it's roughly in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
which means
Doesn't it make you
now,
nervous doing this change without having actual unit tests in place?
yes
Makes
and
me a little
no.
nervous.
I mean, I feel a little bit of something in my chest. The good news is the way that I made the change is so gradual that it was fairly obvious when things were supposed to change and when they weren't. So I was able to do that as I went along. I suppose if I'd kept the preview open here, it would have been even better. Um, and of course, changing code in it's never a good idea to change code in somebody else's text box on the internet because you don't have version control. even though stack, blitz, and bolt have built in actually some, you can revert changes and so on. So I would feel better doing this on my local machine where I could commit after every micro change and then squash when I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
But part of having worked in those environments is that I've built the micro step habit so that if I make a mistake, it's quite obvious when the mistake is likely to happen, and there should be a pretty clear signal if there was a mistake. So I've
Mm-hmm.
been able to trust that. And now this calculate accuracy, this function could go anywhere now. If I wanted to use it in multiple places, then it would be relatively easy to make it a top level function in the file, export it if I want to move it into its own little module. I don't have to rush into any of that yet.
Good.
What has
And so now,
changed is just that
oh,
the scope of those local variables now is narrowed to the point where as this function grows, I'm much less likely for those local variables to be a problem in the future.
okay. I'm wondering why you didn't make this sort of an anonymous, I think I might be displaying my ignorance here. An anonymous function, just a named, I mean, not anonymous, but a local const calculate accuracy is blah blah blah.
Oh,
The-
I'm not a TypeScript expert, so I'm following the pattern that I see here. In fact,
Okay.
what I wanted to type was the JavaScript.
What happens if you do that?
I really don't know.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Let's be bold. So what I don't know is the
I don't see
syntax,
any complaints, any linting complaints. Is that
right?
actually?
But I would expect to have to put like an arrow or something. So
Yes. I would also sort of expect that. I'm
does
surprised that
that mean that that
complaint.
actually works? And I mean, I know the purpose here is to learn LLMs and not
Yeah.
TypeScript. So yeah, it looks like I definitely did blow something. So I don't know if we do this,
Yeah, try that. That looks good to me.
except that the preview doesn't like it. And this is one of the
Doesn't
reasons why
like
I would
it.
much rather do this.
Oh,
Oh, it did work. Maybe it did.
give it a
Maybe
try.
that was the fix. Okay,
Maybe change
let's
it
do
back
our
to
same.
200.
Let's
Yeah.
do our same trick. Exactly, yeah. Oh, there we go. Yay. Refactored accurately. Okay. So I okay, great. I learned a little TypeScript. Fantastic. Um, I don't see a big difference between those two things. I don't know whether using the function keyword is literally identical to this, or if this is slightly better because it's const, and const is usually safer. But at the very least, both work kind of the way I would expect.
I feel like that's one of those things that's actually more interview practice. So I guess
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't go there, but
Um,
okay.
yeah. So I think for consistency's sake, I'm going to go back to what we had before, just because that is what's in the surrounding code, and that way,
Okay.
um, I'm not, if I don't have a strong preference about a coding convention, then I go with what seems to be happening nearby. And if I do have a strong opinion, then I start lobbying the people around me to change it. I
Okay.
noticed, by the way, that
If
number down here is lowercase n, so I'm going to make that fit.
If I find any more information on the difference, and I
Yeah,
feel like there is some difference in my mind, but I don't remember it, I
right.
will put it in the show notes.
Yes. And that's more or less outside of what we're trying to do here. I think the key thing is just this is a very tiny little thing. Um, it's perhaps worth thinking about, and it's exactly the kind of thing that I would imagine that uh, both less experienced programmers and therefore by extension examples on the web that were used to train this LLM wouldn't even bother with this, which is why it doesn't surprise me that Bolt generated it that way. I mean, again, it's perfectly plausible code. It works just fine. Bad throws and good throws for now are effectively constants, so we don't really have to worry about it. But again, it's the kind of thing that as soon as I have the slightest inkling that that's going to be an annoyance, I'm glad that I have the habit of exactly how to refactor that. Those are the kinds of things that I've learned over years and years that help me crawl out of annoying code, and more than that, help me avoid creating annoying code in the first place. And the next step would be looking at all this duplication and deciding whether we want to do something about it.
Yeah. So in total transparency, I just wanted to mention that we were concerned that, maybe there would be duplicate code in various parts of the code,
Yes,
computing this accuracy, over and over again, like sort of as a copy paste thing. And we didn't
right.
find that. It appears that
Yeah.
it's actually using that function everywhere to compute the stats wherever it's used in the different screens. So that's good.
Yeah, we have actually seen evidence that it's using this in two different tabs. So it's good that both, at the very least, remove duplication that way. But there's lots of evidence already in this code base of that kind of copy paste, of just
Right.
like there's 3 to 10 copies of something nearby, and rather than removing the duplication, just copy paste, copy paste. We saw that in the JSX for showing the layout of the buttons on the practice screen as well.
Yes.
Um, yeah, it might be okay. It's the kind of thing where if you asked me 20 years ago, I would have really, really, really insisted that we remove that duplication. And nowadays, I just say, well, I don't know that it's urgent to remove that duplication, but as soon as you see me trying to change this code, that's the point at which I'm going to have to remove that duplication because I don't want to keep coming back to here over time. I don't want it to get worse.